In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote. To save America, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Calling Trump America's Hitler. Then you kissed his ass.
That's not true.
It is true. And then you kissed his ass. And then he endorsed you. And you said he's the greatest president of all time. Mitch McConnell gave you $40 million to prop up your campaign. Peter Thiel gave you $15 million. That's $55 million, JD. What do you think they want for that? They want your loyalty. And you proved that you'll kiss their ass.
Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance. That's always going to be a classic, a classic. What name do you believe comes after, or at least wishes to come after the following? Genghis Khan, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Saddam Hussein, Idi Amin, Ivan the Terrible. Well, if you had any doubts that Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, well, he said the quiet part out loud over the weekend. You just heard the video, the tape. You will never have to vote again. Again, we encourage everyone to look at Project 2025, and even if you want to go for his so-called Agenda 47, it's all there, folks. It's all there. Dictator. And look, he has the Supreme Court in his pocket. This is what's different now. He has the Supreme Court in his pocket, unabashedly so. He has a lot of federal judges in his pocket, and we've seen that work out extremely well for him down in Florida with the documents case. And so believe it when somebody's telling you. Believe it when they're telling you. We're going to talk about that this morning. And we also talk about a family of a Black Army veteran who is suing after police killed him outside a 7-Eleven, even though he did absolutely nothing wrong. And also back to Donald Trump, his response to the murder of Sonya Massey, and news of the Army veteran, the Black Army veteran, is this. He says he wants to give federal qualified immunity to all police officers so they can continue murdering innocent people. And we're going to talk about that this morning. Cardi B comes out hard at Candace Owens for her disgusting take on Sonya Massy. We'll talk about Cardi B this morning as well. And despite injury, Simone Biles returned to the Olympics and dominated Sunday's qualifying round. We will talk about that. Power 96 was at the Urban League. He goes to everything in New Orleans, everything Black in New Orleans. He is Black New Orleans. Well, he says that Mark Mariel's speech was great. The Urban League did not disappoint. So kudos there. A few items first. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign has quite the momentum going for it currently, with all of the Zoom events, and even by white women, that has raised millions of dollars for her. But nothing signified a potential election day nightmare for Donald Trump than what happened in the ultra-conservative villages over the weekend. 2 weekends earlier, it was the Villages MAGA Club organizing a golf cart parade to show support for Trump following an alleged assassination attempt. But at this event this past weekend, it was the Democrats' turn, with hundreds of golf carts decked out in flags and signs. Since the vice president's presidential campaign was just a week old, a lot of those were homemade. So they really got out for the vice president. Organizers said that Democrats in the villages are extremely excited about Vice President Harris's campaign. The villages event was just one of 33 that are planned around the state, marking 100 days until the election. Wow, that has to be one of the most scary sights for the other side, right? I mean, this is down in deep, deep red, deep, deep DeSantis, deep, deep Trump County right here. And the villages, pretty wealthy spot. And so to see these pictures and videos has to be mortifying over at next door to at Mar-a-Lago. So interesting stuff. What momentum? The question becomes, can she keep that momentum going? And right now, I mean, obviously, when you're in the midst of a hot streak, it's hard to see you going cold. But right now, it is hard to see that momentum dying, particularly with the convention coming up. She's going to be making her vice presidential selection within the next week. So that will give her more momentum. And favorability polls are showing that she is trouncing the former president in battleground states, including in Pennsylvania, where she has a 10% lead in favorability polling. So lots and lots of momentum. Um, Perhaps when folks look back at this particular summer, it won't be looking back, uh, seeing and saying, well, the Democrats really destroyed themselves with what they did to Joe Biden. Instead, they will be lauded as uh, heroes in a sense for turning to somebody who actually won, and that is the Vice President Kamala Harris. So we'll see. We'll see. These things have a habit of changing. Momentum can change swiftly, like in sporting events. So we will see. We will see, and perhaps Donald Trump will have countered this in a way that it nullifies it. But right now, with what we've seen, and we'll talk about more this morning, it seems like the Trump campaign continues to dig itself deeper and deeper into the abyss. We'll see. Okay, and on a personal note, we have a new book alert for you guys. The Transatlantic Slave Trade, Overcoming the 500-Year Legacy, is a contemporary testament, history, and documentation to empower remembrance, education, reckoning, reparations, and reconciliation. History reveals that whenever the denial of the oneness of all humanity is permitted, people sink into vicious, violent, and virulent acts of deprivation and dehumanization. With all of that said, so a couple of years ago, I wrote a series about the transatlantic slave trade. This is dating back to 2019, I believe. And what we've done with Dr. Chavis is put those columns as well as some more information into a 300 plus page book that is with the forward of the book. Our man Chuck D wrote the forward, and you got to see what Chuck wrote for this book on the transatlantic slave trade. Also, input from African Union Ambassador Arikana Quo. I can't really pronounce the ambassador's name, but she was really gracious. And NBA legend Isaiah Thomas also contributed to this book as well. So it's uh, available for pre-order today on Amazon.com. So you might want to grab it. And no more. Power 96 says, I pre-ordered your book. I had to get a prepaid debit card, but it was this guy. What do you get a prepaid debit card? You use your Obama phone. I mean, come on, come on. This guy. Prepaid. I've not heard of a prepaid debit card in a long time. Wow. But the transatlantic slave trade, overcoming the 500-year legacy, is now available for pre-order. We'll have a huge rollout during the Congressional Black Caucus's annual legislative conference next month, well, September, as well. So check it out. You might find it interesting. There's a whole series, including the role that the Catholic Church played in the slave trade, the role that Georgetown University, Yale, and other predominantly white institutions played in the slave trade, and how some of them, up until this day, still benefit from the transatlantic slave trade. And yet we talk about affirmative action being struck down by the Supreme Court. They have not affirmatively acted on any type of reparations, right? So we will see. We will see. But check it out. So Democratic lawmakers and Vice President Harris's campaign joined a chorus of online critics in calling out Donald Trump's remarks aimed at a Christian audience, arguing that the former president and current Republican presidential nominee had implied he would end elections in the United States if he won a second term. At the conclusion of his speech, as you saw earlier, Trump said that they don't have to do it anymore. This would be the last time they would have to vote. He says, "We'll have it fixed so good. The fix is in." And that is what, again, we have talked a lot about Project 2025, and that's the blueprint to put a dictator in place. Not just Trump, because Trump is an old man. He'll be 80 soon. And but it's to set up this arrangement in which the torch gets passed to another person that they could use, like they're using Donald Trump. You hear the story so much of Donald Trump, folks who knew Donald Trump, who were close to Donald Trump, when he was chasing black athletes, when he was hanging out with, the Mike Tysons of the world, who, by the way, Mike Tyson has come out and said he's backing Trump. I mean, and, the punches to the head and the fact that um, you know, Trump was a big Tyson guy. He was at all the fights. He wasn't necessarily a Tyson guy, but he was a big events guy. He was at these fights. He and Don King hung out. He hung out with the Jacksons and Michael and you name them. If you had a big name, there you could find Donald Trump around. And these folks, um, a lot of these folks, they romanticize about the Trump they thought they knew. And so you can understand a lot of us, we romanticize about the past, and when we do that, we tend to block out all the bad things. You know that saying, if back in the day, back in the day, but we forget that while back in the day, we may have been able to do this or that, there was a lot of things we wasn't able to do back in the day. There was a lot of mm, not so fun things. So we tend not to equate it equally, if that makes sense. So, and I think that's what goes on with a lot of these guys. Now, I recall before he got in trouble himself a couple years ago, Jermaine Jackson blasting Donald Trump and telling him not to use his brother Michael's songs, not to use Michael's name. Um, so, you do have those who get it, right? Who seem to get it. Um, so, and not, but you have the Mike Tysons, and was even kind of interesting when we saw. Well, I'm not going to single anybody out. There are many of them that seem to, like Dr. Nicole says, the good old days. So, um, 596 says someone needs to read Trump's nephew's book to Tyson. Trump went on a rant using the N word. Yeah, I mean that's nothing new. He that's the thing. Again, I listened one of the things, one of the more profound rebukes of Donald Trump came from none other than Howard Stern a few years ago. And it wasn't just because it came from Howard Stern, it was what Howard Stern was actually saying, conveying the things he said, the things he didn't say. Um, that again, it fits into my narrative about the good old days because Howard Stern seemed to during that time had no problem with Donald Trump spewing the N word and things of that nature. But when retelling this story, Howard Stern certainly seemed to be repulsed by it when he thought back. Um, yeah, yeah. Here's Tyson with Trump's Trump's dad, who we all know, um, just assume was the Grand Wizard of the KKK. I mean, he might as well have been. Um, and Don King, Don King is 150 years old. I mean, come on. I mean, he was. It was always. Let's face it. It was never about anybody else with Don King. I mean, you've heard the stories from Mike Tyson himself, Muhammad Ali, and others, how it was all about Don King and Don King, becoming one of the biggest narcissists you'll ever know. And he couldn't see past his skin. So, um, I hate to try to take Don King apart like that, but that is, I mean, want to debate about it? I mean, let's face it. You can't, the point is, and it works for both sides. You can't take everybody seriously. You can't take them at face value. Tyson is a guy who orphaned, depended on a conservative white guy to raise him, um, and was harmed in a major way by a black man, Don King, and then sent to prison for what to this day many people, of course, Tyson himself, dispute him sexually assaulting a black woman. The idea was that she was paid to um, essentially set him up. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But that is really what he's always believed anyway, and he's spoken of it. So his upbringing, his mind made by being thoroughly, thoroughly influenced by who was raising him, being an orphan, and being taken advantage of by everybody. And believe me, it wasn't just black folks who took advantage of Mike Tyson, but those are the ones who probably stand out the most. Robin Givens, her mother, they really messed this kid up. I like Mike Tyson. I like him now, as a pretty much a comedian, because that's what I view him as, a comedian. So these things, mm, when you see these photos, and that's what, and so that is what Donald Trump. That's what he sought. So he's, in that sense, he's getting exactly what he had plotted. Let me do these photo ops, and yeah, there are people who go all out to do these photo ops, and you say, "Wow, what in the world? What are you getting from this photo op?" In Donald Trump's case, well, he's got the backing of people who just don't know or just don't care to think about his history. It's just like this an ongoing nonsense on social media with Vice President Harris's alleged record as a prosecutor. And DL Hughley again. DL Hughley is somebody who I could take or leave at times, but I've been following him years and years ago. I was at the Comedy Store in LA. I may have told this story before, but I'll be brief about it if I did. And I was sitting front row. You never sit front row at the Comedy Store. The worst thing you can do is sit first row at the Comedy Store. DL was on stage, and I mean, he joke after joke. He embarrassed me and everything. Next day, we at the Vons or Ralph's supermarkets, one of either Vons or Ralph's in Woodland Hills. And who do I run into? It was DL Hughley. And DL was like having a fit, like, oh my gosh. It's like, you? I'm like, yeah, why? Why me? And he said, you were in the front row. I was so embarrassed. I had a date with me too. I was so embarrassed. He messed up my night in more ways than six. So I was like, tag on it, DL. But he has pointed out, yeah, Dr. Nicole, he always goes after the front row. That's what he told me. He said, "Brother, you was in the front row. He was in the front row." But he has pointed out, okay, if you want to go by the false narrative of uh, Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor, then how about thinking about the fact that you're talking about somebody who's been convicted 34 times? Might be, nah, I wouldn't have pulled the. He says, I'm surprised you didn't pull a Will Smith on DL. No, no. Yeah, and listen, I'm gonna say this. I mean, I may have had the mindset and the disposition and all that, but Dr. Nicole will tell you, I was a very skinny kid. Listen, I got folks to do the dirty work for me. Listen, I was not trying to jump in nobody's faces, especially knowing that, you know, there's unlike Will Smith, who got to walk on the Oscar stage unabated, somebody would have grabbed me up before I got to DL anyway. And DL probably, yeah, I don't know. Back then, he probably would have been, he probably would have been able to take me out a little bit. So I'm man enough to admit that. Not today, though. Shoot, not today. Oh my gosh. That's right. I'm like Ali. I gotta keep the face pretty. Can't have 'em touch the face. Sure. Oh gosh. Power 96 says Hughley has come a long way. He is capturing a lot of black men attention. I am shocked by that. So am I. But his but when you speak, when you stand up and speak as this saying that we continually have heard in the black press, truth to power. And when you stand behind it, and as they say today, 10 toes down, you got to respect that. And I think DL has earned that respect. I mean, this is a guy who had no qualms with saying, I was wrong. I was wrong about the vice president. He believed the hype, as it were, and then did his homework. And that's the thing that you don't see. And that's why DL does deserve and gets, at least for me, a lot of respect because the dude didn't have to take time out to do his homework. I mean, he's got his show, he's got his career, he's getting paid. He don't care, but he does care. Cared enough to look that stuff up because you can best believe that man was not going to support Kamala Harris if that stuff was true about her past. And then you got these other clowns, the clowns that go after her record, the false narrative of her record. You know who's doing that? It's the criminals. That's who's doing that. And so you can almost understand why a criminal wouldn't support a prosecutor. And that's what you're seeing. That's what so these whatever the number might be, 15% of these black men, of those 15%, I guarantee you 99.5% of those 15% are criminals or felons or ex-cons, as they say. Guarantee you. Do your homework on that. Guarantee you. Because there's no way that it's like, okay, do you take uh this woman who was doing her job, and again, she didn't set the laws in California, right? Her task was to carry out the laws, being the top cop down in the San Francisco area, right? But do you take that and and you use that to say, okay, then we got this guy who's been convicted of, at least civilly convicted of sexual assault twice, convicted of massive business fraud, never revealed his taxes. Uh, the U.S. Congress committee determined that he traded American secrets with enemies for cash. 34 convictions, felony convictions, and attacks black women as much as he breathes air. Still to this day, the exonerated five he wants executed. Yusef Salaam is a city council member in New York. He wants him dead. Black folks, brown folks, brokenhearted every day of the Sonya Masseys of the world, the Sandra Blondes of the world, the George Floyds, Eric Garners, and this guy comes out, doubles down, triples down, quadruples down on, I want to give police the authority to just do it without being questioned. Total immunity. And y'all okay with that stuff? Because when you think about it, like I said, you must be criminals to support that, to go against law and order. You got to be criminals because that means you're not even considering the fact that he is directly talking about you. Byron Donalds, he's talking about you. Tim Scott, he's talking about you. Candace Owens, whether you accept it or not, he's talking about you. He wants you shot down in the streets. It's mm. Cornelius Jones says DL Hughley don't and not connected to the poor and working people's. He's grassroots FBA people. Listen, whatever his position on reparations is at this point, does that really matter? Does DL Hughley's position? I don't even know what his position on reparations is, and he's saying he's not connected to the poor. He's connected to reality, and poor people are connected to reality more than anybody else in this world. Poor people know the reality of this world better than anybody. To say DL is not connected to them at this point, no, he of course he's not connected in that sense. Perhaps in the sense you might be coming from, but the dude is just be. If you're gonna speak on this stuff like he is, speak facts. That's all. Who cares what you're connected with? I don't care if you're connected to, if you're a conservative. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. If just speak truth. And DL is doing that. He's done his homework. Do your homework and then speak, especially if you have a platform. Anybody else, who cares what you say? But this man has a platform, a major platform. This is why it's important that the Charlemagne's, it's important that the Snoop Dogg, all of them do some education because they're speaking on this stuff. So educate. None of them are connected to the poor. None of them. And whether I could care, like I said, at this, you should be able to. It's not about that right now. It's not about that. And in fact, uh, reparations is only brought up on. Okay, let's be real about it. On this side, on the left, with Democrats, that when it's brought up, of course, it's brought up in the context of the transatlantic slave trade, and for black folks, right? When it's brought up on the right, and you've heard it, it's in Project 2020. You've heard Trump say it. Um, they want to repair what they feel is the damage done to white folks, and they've been doing that. The affirmative action is no more. And other social safety net programs, they are ripping away. And if you allow Project 2025 to come into existence, there will be no more social safety nets for the elderly, meaning uh, Social Security is going away, Medicaid, Medicare is going away. And for others, the Affordable Health Care Act, which has saved millions of lives, is going away. 30 million people have health care because of the Affordable Care Act that would not have had health care otherwise. I mean, give it a rest with that. Get educated, folks. Get educated. If you're going to get involved in this process, get educated. Educate yourself. I'm with nonsense. Michael Thompson had broken no law, and this is another problem. This is another problem. He had broken no law when he entered a 7-Eleven convenience store and asked the clerk to call 911 on his behalf because he was suffering a mental health episode. But El Paso police arrived and killed the 36-year-old black man, father of 2 children, and U.S. Army veteran. Think about that. Now, his mother, Barbara, has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the El Paso police and several other defendants, including Axon Enterprise, the company that sells tasers to law enforcement agencies, marketing it as a less than lethal device. The incident took place on June 27, 2022, when Thompson was walking down a public street after midnight in the direction of the 7-Eleven, walking past the 24-hour Walmart, where an off-duty police officer from Texas Tech University was working security. Although Thompson was not breaking any law, Texas, Texas Tech police officer Jesus Cabos decided to stalk him, making Thompson even more paranoid. This is according to the lawsuit that was filed in the 41st Judicial District Court in El Paso. On the night of his death, Thompson entered the 7-Eleven and asked the clerk to call 911. The clerk noticed that he was experiencing visual and auditory hallucinations. The clerk did make that call at about 12:50 a.m. and described it as a welfare check. El Paso police officer Dominic Guerrero was the first to arrive on the scene rather than medical personnel. And then it just descended from there. And this man was placed in the back of the patrol car and tased to death. Tased and choked and beaten. This from somebody experiencing a mental health crisis. Somebody who asks for help, literally asks for help. Just like Sonya Massy called the cops because there was an intruder. Just like Sonya Massy. Unbelievable. Mike V, I want to go back to Mike V for 1 second. Greer, he says DL Hughley is not running for office. No need to know his position on reparations. Byron Donalds doesn't support reparations, and folks don't take him to task at all. 100%. Power 96 says he's begging black people do not call 911, the police, or any law enforcement agencies if you or a family member is having a mental health problem. There are mental health helplines. They are. And I totally agree with that suggestion, Power 96. There are mental health helplines, emergency lines. But this is and so folks want to argue about trivial, what becomes trivial stuff, and try and justify their ignorance. How do you support that? How do you support officers doing this? This guy, again, the biggest thing, you serve your country. He did. 2 kids, young, no, no respect, no care. And so you want to argue about other stuff, about whether DL Hughley supports reparations or not? Ridiculous. So, and then here it is. So here is your guy, Donald Trump. We're going to quote, we're going to give our police their power back, he said at a rally. And we're going to give them immunity from prosecution. So how about that? Sonya Massey is dead. This veteran, 34 years old, two small kids, he's dead. And you want to support this immunity? They should get immunity. They should get immunity. As much of a hell that black folks and brown folks have had with the legal system. Y'all want to say that it's okay for these officers to just kill at will, without cause, without provocation, and get immunity. This is what you want to support. It's insane. Trump made it clear in office that he'd fight legislation that would hamstring qualified immunity. He made it clear that he was not in any when he was in office that he was not going to support removing any type of qualified immunity. Now he's again, as we keep saying, double down, quadruple down on it, that he wants to offer federal qualified immunity. And just think about this. This is why this qualified immunity junk is why, for example, two California men could not sue police officers who allegedly stole more than $225,000 from them during an execution of a search warrant. You want to give that qualified immunity. It's really, really sad when folks get involved in a process that y'all claim is going to be life changing. You know, you keep hearing it's the most consequential election ever. But you go in there unarmed and uninformed or ignorant. Gina Stewart said in Michigan, the mental health number is 988. So if you're in Michigan, remember that 988 and look it up because there are at just about every state, I believe every state has one, and most municipalities. So locally, there are mental health helplines. Mike V says we need a federally funded mental health response task force. Hopefully, Vice President Harris can make this happen. He says. And speaking of ignorance, every single day, Candace Owens makes it a point to disrespect Black people to satisfy her following. And she managed to reach yet another new low. She defended the police officer who fatally shot Sonya Massey, and Cardi B was not having it. On the latest episode of her show, Candace Owens said that the now jailed former sheriff's deputy Sean Grayson shooting Massey to death in her home was simply a mistake. She says police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen. The idea that now you're going to use this situation to then try to make Black Americans believe that this happened simply because she was Black is pointedly ridiculous. So she wants to be able to comment on everything. She never stops. And it's you gotta wonder when and again, we were talking about mental health a minute ago, but you gotta wonder what is for people like that. She was not asked to comment. She was not invited to weigh in, but yet, this young lady had to jump in and felt the need to do the bidding of white supremacists. Unless, and I say she wasn't asked or whatever. Perhaps she was. Perhaps the latest check written to her was for that. That's probably what it was, right? right? Somebody took their hood off for a second to sign a check and gave it to her. You make sure you do this. And so she, she cashed the check, and the type of person that she seems to be, I'm pretty sure she waited for it to clear. So she waited for that check to clear. Because look, nobody trusts her, so she can't trust anybody. So why would you? Um, and Power 96 said that wasn't a mistake. That cop was Negro hunting. Now he will be hunted in prison. Don't drop the soap. Oh gosh. But anyway, Cardi B took the spaces on X to address Candace Owens, and she did so in a way that you might not have expected. She did it in a very, very she didn't curse her. She didn't call out her name, but she just took her down in a very responsible way. And this is what Cardi says. She says she called the remarks disturbing. She says, for you to sit here and say that, oh, not everything is racial. I know that that is sad, but this is not something racial. There's more white people that get killed by cops. This is what Candace Owens had said, and Cardi's quoting her. There's more people that she says, girl, shut up. You don't feel one bit of empathy, she says, a little bit of sympathy of how this woman died. The officer knew in the back of his head because she was a black woman that she was going to get away, that he was going to get away with it. Not only did he think that, but the department thought that because they didn't tell her son or her father that a cop shot her. If you remember, they did not immediately tell them. And then Cardi finished with a warning for Candace Owens and others. She says, this could be you one day, and it could be actually worse because you're the type of person that if a cop stopped you, you would get sassy at the mouth. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the only reason why we mention it is because Cardi B really succinctly took her down on that. And you remember, this is the ignorant person who who made a documentary, entitled it "The Greatest Lie Ever Sold," defaming George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. And right, David Youngblood says Candace has never offered the quote mistake excuse for any black man's crime. Yeah, that's Candace Owens in a nutshell. And um, if you're going again, so if you're going to use your platform, folks that have these major platforms and followings, like a Cardi B, like a DL Hughley, this is how you use it. Truth to power. So there you go. Cardi B, nicely done. Mike B said, would like to know what that police officer's social media footprint was like. When Trayvon was killed, you knew what grades he had and whether or not he had marijuana in his system, and he was the victim. 100%. And that's the other thing that they continually not do. They continue not give you this information. After some digging, folks found out that this guy had what, 6 different departments in 4 years or something like that. That he kept moving from department to department. That's always a major red flag. Well, on a much lighter and fun note, Simone Biles made her anticipated return to the Summer Olympics yesterday. She dominated a gymnastics qualifying session that ended with Team USA in the lead. The 27-year-old is the most decorated gymnast in history and considered the GOAT of her sport. She debuted in this year's competition in Paris after a widely publicized break, which began with her premature exit from the Tokyo Olympics to prioritize her mental health. Team USA finished Sunday's qualifying session with an impressive score of 172.296, putting the group of athletes at the front of the pack heading into the all-around final this coming Thursday. For her part, Simone Biles delivered stunning and technically near flawless performances on the balance beam, vault, floor, and uneven bars, despite injuring her calf while warming up for the second round of qualifying events in Paris. A video of the warm up showed her at one point crawling back from the vault and then hopping on her right leg toward the edge of the mat, where she told a teammate that I'm going to need a wheelchair. It is that performance is legendary, absolutely legendary. Absolutely legendary. Simone Biles. Um, and it's so interesting. I was watching a baseball game a couple of days ago, and the pitcher, it's a New York Mets pitcher, had a calf injury and was removed from the game. And with about 60 games left in the season, this pitcher, removed with the calf injury, is out for the season, will not pitch again this season on the calf injury, a very similar injury to what Simone Biles had. But yet Simone plowed through and just broke records again, despite this calf injury. Power 96 says Simone had me up at 5:45 a.m. watching her routine. She can twist and turn like no other. Oh boy, oh boy. And yes, Killer Mike and Candace Owens are real close. He says, let that sit in. Let that sit in. Yeah, exactly. But congratulations to Simone Biles on just a legendary performance. People often talk about the flu game with Michael Jordan. Um, but this, I tell you, a calf injury that, uh, like I said, another world class athlete, a pitcher for the New York Mets, had a calf injury just the other day, and they have listed him out for the season, that he will not recover in time. Yet she gets a calf injury, gets in the wheelchair, and says, "You know what? Forget about it. I'm going to do this." And boy, did she ever do it. So congratulations to Simone Biles. Great job there. And congratulations to Flavor Flav. I can't say enough. Flavor Flav has been amazing at the Olympics. I mean, others are there. You saw Snoop Dogg carrying the torch, LeBron James doing it at George Washington imitation. But Flavor Flav has he has captured the imagination of many. Not only supporting the women's water polo team. I mean, he's worked out with them. He's done so much. And over the weekend, he was filmed with Dr. Jill Biden um, and others celebrating his support of the women's water polo team and of the Olympics as a whole, and what he's brought there. Folks are just everywhere he's going. He's being showered with love. And again, reason to lift up Flavor Flav is this is somebody we talk about, somebody who's come back. This is a guy, substance abuse problems, um, uh, other problems that he had, run-ins with law enforcement, and now sober, fully recovered from all of those different problems that plagued him in the past, even a brief spat or what appeared to be a spat with Chuck D. And now in fact, they're getting ready to go on tour. Public Enemy is going on tour soon. So that is going to be an amazing thing to see as well. But good for Flavor Flav. I mean, he has this is the new goodwill ambassador that the United States has, and that is Flavor Flav. I remember that was pretty much like Muhammad Ali's role years ago. This de facto goodwill ambassador, and now Flavor Flav seems to have stepped into those shoes. And I don't think he realized that he was doing that. I think what we're seeing is a person that's really committed, genuine, and is now just decided, I'm going to enjoy life as a somebody who's helping others. And yes, Absolutely. And he's just he's really, really, if hip hop, let me say this. If hip hop, and Chuck calls him, and I agree, the Willie Nelson of hip hop. If hip hop reputation was based on Flavor Flav, everyone would love hip hop. That's just the way it is. Flav was playing water polo, treading water for 8 minutes. Ain't no joke. Yep, Power 96. Isn't that something? Daniela Pierre says the strength and resilience of a black woman are a mighty force. Yep. But again, the Mr. Durrett is chiming in about some backstage passes to the Public Enemy. Listen, that's for me and Greer. Y'all can sit out in the audience. Me and Greer is backstage, not y'all. Don't be trying to infiltrate our party here. Oh man, let me see. So you know the type of bottle I need for backstage passes, Durrett. Just saying. So anyway, congratulations again to both Simone Biles, particularly Simone Biles, but certainly Flavor Flav. Follow Flavor Flav because y'all are too much. Danielle Pierre says, "Yeah, boy." Mike says, "Flavor's clock never has the right time." Somebody gifted him. So that's hilarious, Mike. Mike V he's coming from the top rope. Somebody gifted him another clock, so he says he's wearing 2 clocks now for the rest of the Olympics. The next Olympics in the USA must have Carlos Smith and a descendant from Peter Morgan to carry the Olympic torch into the stadium. Yeah, you wonder why that hasn't been done, right? Um, yeah, that should have been done a long time ago, but I know where you're coming from on that. But okay, we have to agree. We have to tell Flavor that his Mike V does not uh, really appreciate the fact that he doesn't have the right time on his clock. So we're gonna have to let him know. Let's make a point of letting him know that Mike V does not approve. So too much. Listen, subscribe to our YouTube page and watch from our YouTube page, the Let It Be Known dash news site. We really would appreciate that. I think what we need to do, I'm gonna say this out loud, and Greg's gonna say, "Why did you say that?" You know how Roland Martin has, as his scroll goes, and he also has his Cash App. You can contribute. Yeah, maybe we ought to do that. Y'all got to contribute. Y'all don't have to, but I'm sure you want to. So let it be known. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.